Hey everybody, Jim Duncan with Nest Realty here in Charlottesville, Virginia, sitting with Greg Slater with Nest Realty. It is first week of March 2025, and we took a break, just a little break while we were out, actually practicing real estate and representing clients. And we're going to do this again first week of April because we're entering a super busy season, hopefully, in Charlottesville real estate. Albemarle County 2025, we've seen 191 new listings in Albemarle County, just resales. It's up from 185 last year. Contracts are down 133 from 145 last year, and median days on market is about the same. It's the same. It's six this year and 5 last year. Looking at the city of Charlottesville, a little bit different. 2024, there were 73 new listings. And this year, January and February, just resales with 63. Contracts are down from 58 last year to 38 this year, which again is a marked decline. And median days of market is 6. Again, it's about the same. I think the challenge that we're faced with is it's first week of March, and just in the last 4 days, I've seen 38 new listings in the city and the county, and yes, last year was a leap year, but we had 25 in the same-ish time frame last year. So inventory is picking up. People are still buying stuff, but it's certainly a different market than we've seen in a number of years.
Very much so, and there's a lot of outside factors we'll talk about that kind of make it a little bit harder to understand what might happen next. But definitely in the last week things have really picked up. March, if people aren't aware, is literally historically the busiest listing month of the year. So when somebody asks me about the market, here are my bullet points. They're very similar to yours, and I look at Albemarle County specifically because I think that's kind of a barometer of the rest of the market. But yeah, the inventory's up. While it's not a lot, we're over 150 homes in our inventory right now today in Albemarle County, in which we did not achieve that number until May of last year. So it is growing. Mm-hmm. The listing pace is relatively constant, though. It's not that we're listing more homes than last year to grow the inventory. We're selling fewer homes. So the contract pace has slowed down year over year. It's actually 22% lower in Albemarle County, but if we break that down further, it's 6% on the listings, or the resale side is slower, but the builders are about 45% down year over year. And we have to be careful when we look at new construction sales in a short period of time because one community can really move those numbers. I can tell you though, as someone who is helping a builder and immersed in new construction markets, we have to watch that closely because new construction pricing still has upward pressure on it. The cost to build homes, the cost to develop lots is still going up. So the price points, I don't think many people can look at the inventory homes and not be like, wow, that's a little more expensive than I would thought it'd be, or a lot more expensive than I thought it'd be. So people are trying to digest, but they're still selling homes, and we're still seeing new price points in new communities we've never seen. And we've already seen that some this year. I think one of the things that's causing the inventory to grow is, like you said, the absorption rate is slowing down a little bit. Where we've been living in the 50, 60, 70% of the homes come on the market, sell immediately. That dipped under 50% so far this year, slightly, by my math. And last but not least, the stat that I follow is new construction as a percentage of overall sales. Right. For the last 90 days has been lower than it historically has been the last few years. So again, that could be project by project, or the supply. Like we talk about Crozet all the time. There's not a lot of detached single-family opportunities for new construction in Crozet right now. No. But in general, the market's shifting is the point I'm trying to make. And where it's going, we're going to really learn in the next 30, 60, 90 days.
Yeah, which I think that one of the things that we've seen respectively is that with assessments are out, property assessments are out. I put a story in Crozet, put it out last week, 2 weeks ago, and and I said, if the assessments are out, if you feel like you want to challenge your assessment, shoot me an email. And I did. And someone emailed me and said, I think my house is assessed for too high. And we traded emails back and forth. And I said, oh, great. I sold a house on that street, a couple weeks ago. And he said, okay, well, and I did my math. And disappointingly, I think for him, his house was assessed about right where it should be. So I think it's something that you can feel like your house is worth X, but when you run the numbers and the data, it can be something in line with what others' expectations are. But assessments are up, and it hurts affordability because we are an expensive place to live.
Yeah, so I've had a few assessment conversations recently, and look, there's the trend of if the market values are going up, assessments are going to go up. It's pretty simple, but I often caution people about relying on their assessment as it pertains to specific value. And I'll give you a real live example I just discovered last week. There's a home in a very homogeneous community. They're all less than 5 years old, and there's only like 3 floor plans. And there was a home that sold last year in this community for $845,000. Their new assessment was $905,000. And I just did a CMA on the exact same floor plan across the street that hasn't sold since it was built. It's literally the same home,
right,
and it's assessed for $700,000. So 2 identical homes on the same street facing each other had a $200,000 delta in assessment. So you have to be careful. Assessments are just like Zillow. It's an algorithm calculating these things, and they can get a little wacky.
Yeah, they do mass appraisals, and I think that they look at about a third-ish in person, but it's a mass appraisal using algorithms, and in my opinion, the assessor should not go inside your house. So they don't know how they have, whether you've done quartz or granite or wood or whatever they've done. They don't know the upgrades that you've done. So your house could be assessed for higher or lower depending on what the actual perception is of the value.
I think the further away your home gets from a transaction where they have a piece of data about what your home is worth in the marketplace, the less likely your assessment is to be accurate.
Yeah. So again, assessments are one number, estimates are one number, Redfin's estimates are one number. The true market value is something we fight for every day, is to understand exactly what it is on that Tuesday that you activate it. Because there's, assessed value is a number that you pay taxes on. Market value is more of a current and forward-looking valuation that we use for buyers and sellers to figure out what that value should be.
Hold that, I got to adjust your mic. It's like falling in your pocket. This will be easier.
Should I wear a hat like the Instagrammers, like they put on their hat?
And we should just hand it back and forth.
Yeah, you're good.
The fluffy mic.
You ready?
Yeah.
So we're talking about assessments. Obviously, assessments lead to your tax amount, and your tax amount goes into your monthly payment. So what we're talking about ultimately is affordability. We know there's been upward pressure for years on our values around here. So the next thing we have to talk about then is interest rates.
They're higher.
Interest rates are higher, but in the last 30 days, there seems to be downward pressure, or even the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It could be temporary. I mean, at some point, we'll have to talk about the uncertainty of this world, and precariously, we all are talking to people that have their concerns about what's going on, regardless of which end of the political spectrum we're on. But there's just things happening we've never really dealt with before in the world, and the side effect is the impact on interest rates. So what will happen if interest rates go down all the way to 6%?
I think if they go back down to 6. Well, first, 7% is historically a fine, even a really good interest rate.
I've had mortgages with interest rates higher than that in my lifetime.
Yeah, so have I, which means that you're old. But I think it's something that I'm seeing more of the anchors that buyers are coming to the market. 3 years ago, their anchor on rates was 2, 3, 4%, and now we're seeing the anchor is 6, 7.5%. And so they're calibrating to the market of interest rates. But if they were to go down, I think we'd see more people come out. But I think it's also one where, as I've told my buyers for years, that if that quarter of a third of a point is your differentiator between buying a home and not buying a home, we need to have a different conversation about affordability. Because a quarter of a point shouldn't be the thing that's a determiner. And the next to last thing I'll say on this is the people who say, date the rate, marry the house, are doing a massive disservice to the market. Because I tell my buyers, buy the home and be able to reasonably comfortably afford the home at the rate that you get today. And expect that payment to stay the same-ish. And don't count on it on the rates declining in 18 months or 24 months or ever. But back to your question, I think if rates were to go back down to 6%, I think we'd see more people, more people coming into the market and being able to afford homes. And the sellers are going to see a greater velocity of contracts, and more buyers are going to come out of the woodwork who are going to want to buy homes.
Yes, it's always remarkable to me how much the interest rate conversation drives interest in starting a home search or continuing a home search or making a home buying decision. I agree with you. A home buying decision is a lot bigger than the interest rate, right? There's just so much more to it than that. My only concern about where we are right now is what might cause interest rates to go down. Might be at odds with causing more people to want to make a big decision like that right now, right? Because the interest rates are driven by demand, and if the rest of the economy is slowing, that's what's going to cause interest rates to go down.
Well, I mean, I think that let's come back to the uncertainty here in a second. But I think you've got the price, the rates, and we're also seeing homeowners insurance is becoming a conversation that we're having more and more of. There's an agent out west that I think was a post on LinkedIn, and their contract out west, homeowners insurance is a contingency in their contract. In their state contract, it's a contingency. And I'm starting to use the homeowners insurance addendum more and more now, mainly because I want to remove a contingency faster and sooner in the process for both the buyers and the sellers. Because insurance is a different conversation. It's not just you're not guaranteed to get insurance, as soon as you say, hey, I want insurance. So I think it's something that, it's nudging up a little bit in price. And so that factors into the PITI payment, principal, interest, taxes, insurance.
The insurance markets are changing. Insurance companies are making big decisions about their business models. I have 2 rental properties that were under the insurance of a major insurer in this country that no longer insures rental property. Yeah. And so I had to engage with I have an agent who actually helps me he figures everything just like a realtor would for me. He goes and figures it out and tells me, here's the best deal on insurance. And yes, he found another company that would insure those 2 homes. But as you say, I am talking to clients at the time of contract about insurance, and I am recommending, if we don't do the addendum, that they at least go make sure there are no problems with their insurability or the home's insurability while we're still under the contingency period of the home inspection or other things like that. They can run concurrently without the addendum, but it's real, and people need to be aware of what's happening in the insurance markets.
Yeah. Do you want to hit uncertainty?
I'll talk about all these things.
Whether
or not we put them on the internet.
I think that, so I will say, one thing that I've been telling my clients, I've been writing about for recently a lot more, is the NAR settlements came down last year. One of the things I'm coaching my clients, as we're doing the interview process to see if we're a good fit, is looking at productivity, and not like a top producer, because to me that's, my clients don't care if I'm a top producer, they care if I'm competent. And what I mean by that is getting enough reps, enough practice, enough mistakes, enough learning from mistakes to get better at what you do. Because my opinion firmly is, if you're not doing this every day and not doing enough transactions to get better at what you do, you're not going to be better. You're not going to be in the best position to represent your clients. And it's something that, again, we do this every single day. And I learn something every single day, because it's such a changing market, both locally, local economy, national, world economy, and also just the practice of real estate is so much different now than it was 18 months ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that if you're not doing it every day, you're not best prepared to represent your clients.
To follow up on your point, since the settlement news last year, it definitely changes the number of conversations I'm having with people who want to talk about how I do business and how I'm compensated. And I welcome that conversation. I still think the biggest mistake the consumers I'm seeing make are not talking to more than one agent. Right? Because you just don't know what agents are doing. Because one of the purposes of the settlement was to remove the offer of compensation set by the seller from the MLS. And the net effect of that is what it was, I think, intended to be. We don't know what our competition is charging, nor should we.
Right.
And we're all trying to make business decisions for our own personal business models for what works for us, and that's the free market. Yeah. So yes, I'm happy to have a conversation about what I think that settlement has done, how it's changed our business, and why I charge what I charge for the services I offer. Because I take a holistic approach like you. It is trying to give advice on every phase of the home buying process and home ownership and beyond, right? These relationships we have with people last way more than a transaction in many cases, and doing what we've done for as long as we've done it makes us resourceful in ways that most of my clients don't even realize till we get through the transaction. Right. And at closing, I'll often tell them this is not the end, it's the beginning. And hopefully that is the way it turns out.
I've got two sets of questions that that clients, they interviewed me a number of years ago, and one's 1 page of questions and one's 3 pages of questions that I offer to my clients as we're having the interview process. I'll say, here's a list of questions that I answered a few years ago. They ended up hiring me, thankfully. And part of that hiring process was me asking for the questions. It's comprehensive. And I think it's something that if you're not, again, to beat that horse a little bit, I think if you're not interviewing somebody to represent you for the, what may be the biggest transaction of your life, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Look at the agent and look and see how they market the property, see how they communicate, see how they present themselves. And I think it's something that it warrants a deep dive into who they are professionally to represent you.
That's right. Every agent is not the right agent for every buyer or seller. It's as simple as you and I are both very competent at what we do. We have a lot of experience and we spend a lot of time trying to be better at what we do. Yeah. But we might not be the best fit for the same people. And because sometimes it's as simple as personality types, type A people, type B people, right? Some people want everything done for them. Some people want to know everything you're doing while you're doing it. But at the end of the day, yes, it comes down to competency. It comes down to trust. Yep. And now, more so than ever, because of the settlement, it comes down to value and how much you're paying for those services and whether or not that's commensurate with the expertise and the service you're getting for it.
Yeah, and I think that the last thing I'll say on that is that I try to be more diligent with my clients now, frankly, than I was, 3 years ago, detailing what I'm doing. Defining that the things that I do and the things that I will do, and then saying this is what I did. I go back to a story years and years ago where I had a seller. It was middle of the crash, and I might have told this story before. I know I've told clients. And middle of the crash, we put his house on the market, and 30 days. He was a reluctant engager of a realtor, and I represented him very well, I think. And we went under contract in under 30 days, and middle of the crash. And we were at closing. I remember that we were at the title company. I said, now that you've been through it, how do you feel about the value for what I provided? He said, I didn't really get a chance to evaluate what you did because I had been quiet about the problems I was solving and the things I was doing in the back end. I'm not going to today, I'm not going to say, I wrote an email today. I sent a text to an agent, but I will detail the things that I do because I think it's important for consumers when they hire you to know that you're doing what they expect you to do, and you're doing the things they don't know that you needed to do. A couple things that I would put out is, are you a full-time realtor? How many buyers and seller transactions have you done in the last 18 months? Tell me a story about how one fell apart. Tell me a story about how you kept one together, and what's your relationship with your other agents. Because I think it's one where, again, Greg and I can have different conversations than by text or voice or email or whatever than I would have with an agent from out of the area who doesn't do more than 2 transactions a year. There's I think that there's a professional competency and shared respect between good agents. And to be blunt, sometimes I'm wary of agents that I see haven't done very much because I know that I expect they might need some more hand-holding from their broker or their colleagues to get through the transaction, which makes them a dicier thing for my clients.
Yeah, that professional networking is incredibly important. I'd like to think I have spent so much of my time volunteering in the industry and serving in leadership deliberately to grow a very strong professional network of agents that I trust, because it's different when you do a transaction with someone, that you've never met, you don't know who they are at all, maybe you've never heard their name, versus I had someone from Richmond drive all the way to Crozet to show one of my listings, and that's a completely different story too, right? Because when you cross these geographical territories, the business model can be a little different culturally, the way agents behave, the type of forms they use and things like that, but you have to have a baseline understanding of how the transaction and everything works and contracts work to kind of find the middle ground for how you're going to get through that transaction when people see things differently and do things customarily differently, because it can vary greatly.
And I would say, and a challenging part of that is understanding what your client might be getting into and level setting for them of how the transaction may go and what the bumps may be that you're going to smooth out for them. Because it's easy to know how a good known entity is going to operate. A little bit different when you've never interacted with them before. I'm Jim Duncan with Nest Realty, 434-242-7140, and jim@nestrealty.com.
And I'm Greg Slater, 434-981-6655. Greg Slater at nestrealty.com. Because we give out our phone numbers because we want you to call us. We're happy to talk.
And we usually answer.
Or call back quickly.